Welcome. What I'm going to be doing today is I wrote a freestyle about this whole situation concerning rap. That since Eminem dropped Kamikaze, MGK, Joe Budden, and all that type of stuff right there. This is different than what most of my audiences have been used to. I mean, people that know me personally, they know that I write and stuff. I'm not a professional or anything like that, but I want to get something out there and I preserve it, and maybe somebody can take it and work with it or something like that. So maybe it will inspire someone. So let me just go through these little rap of my sorts. Throw. It's not very good, but anyway, let me just do this. I like the beat and the song was okay. With this beef, you have paved your own way. Not saying you didn't do this before, but you didn't know that it was in store, but neither did him. So in a sense, you are like him, but in other ways, you were not alike. I could give you praise when you're on the mic, but neither one of you was supernatural. Sounds like you took a bit of the forbidden stupid apple. Allow me to flip the script because it seems like we're all whipped, but something so devious that we're envious of each other's hits. So we bring up what the other miss and hope that it hits home because no misery don't miss being alone, and I'm in your company. And here's what you want from me. I've been taught to show hard, even if I got no bars to go hard, even if it's a low bar. But I'm not a stranger to clotheslining and know there's no co-signing. So I'm gonna enter the Royal Rumble, hoping that the Lord fumble because of the chance to criticize. That stupid thing won't roll. What y'all hands when I'm wondering what is butted? Will you butt heads with butt in the butt head? Or let it lie like bedhead on your bedspread made by caterpillars? The sicky lines cap the pillars of the whole house of hip hop or fillers. For a generation lip lock or pretend to fill you for fillers. But if the antennas are raised in the smoke crack, so they want smoke but none can hold that. Better graduate to glass pipes because they've been taught the bagpipes, which means they can blow. It sounds like because when they blow, it sounds like a cat is on its last life. I'm going to act life. It's Mac Light. Let's see where to go. This one spot. Uh, Here it is. I'm going to expose it like a Mac Light. Paint each other in a bad light. Hoping that when the die is cast, that they will have surpassed lines. While leaving beef and content, will they be content with rhymes that are that bright? Or is hip hop flat line? Please sign the last line so we can pull the plug. Because if we don't soon be pulling slugs out of the wound of us. A house can stand if we devour one another. But this house was built on the power of one another. And that includes making ways for cannibals to eat away with their mandibles. Their way is remandable. So if these lines are landable, then competitors already know who is better served. But how is hip hop better served? By drug music, thug music, or words that sound better slurred. But since the foundation is freedom of speech, grounds for being impeached, which means MGK is free to speak about anything, and the media is free to speak about anything. Before you choose to speak about anything, remember you can't choose the consequences. So in my eyes, none of you are suspended, but it's up to you to defend it or rend it. And the reason why I read this is a minute we're envious. Now I didn't spit that very well, of course. Um, Part of that was technical difficulties. Part of it is I don't have it internalized, but I just want to talk about. Somebody be like, man, that's whack. Well, let's see if there's not any artistic stuff in this, okay? I like the beat and the song was okay. Well, this is clearly my reference to MGK's song Rap Devil. With the beef, you paved your own way. All right? Same thing. Not saying you didn't do this before. So I'm saying he was on my radar. I knew about him before then. But you didn't know what was in store. And that's true. I mean, when you go and you become a rapper or whatever, he probably never imagined going up against Eminem, but now he is. But him doesn't know what's in store. So in a sense, you are like him, right? So both of them are in common ground here. But in other ways, you are not alike. That's a clear reference to Eminem's reference. I I give y'all praise when you're on the mic, okay? So I'm giving them their props. But neither you are supernatural, so that's qualifying that when I'm talking about praise, that we're not talking about supernatural beings. We're not talking about a rap god or a rap devil. Sounds like y'all took a bit a bite of let's see, took a bite, it's supposed to be bite, uh, of forbidden fruit, and no, it's not a stupid apple. So this is a reference, of course, to the fall of mankind. But here, this is the idea that they're believing the lie that they could be like gods, which would be imitating the devil, rap god, that type of thing. But allow me to flip the script. But it seems like we're all whipped. So in other words, rather than just going at them and saying I'm better than them, I'm saying we're all in this. So that's what I mean by flip the script. We're all whipped by something so devious that we're all envious of each other's hits. So this is the idea that we're all envious. Each other miss. In other words, where we failed, where we lacked, we try to show disrespect, try to cut down people, say that we're worse, and hope that it hits home. Okay? In other words, stings, basically. Because misery don't miss being alone. And of course, this is like the idea of misery loves company, but this is also the imagery of the Stephen King movie Misery, where the person is trapped at home. And then that's why the next line says, and I'm in your company. And here's what you want from me. I've been taught to show heart even if I got no bars. And so I'm saying I like the fact that regardless of who you are, if you're involved in rapping and somebody comes at you, you know, you should go at them. Even if you have sorry bars, even if you are not very good, you should still do it because just show that you have that heart. So the metaphor is the same like you're fighting, you know, at least from a worldly sense, that if you got in a fight, you could show you showed heart. Even though you can't take a punch or land a punch, you at least got out there. And even if I got no bars, to go hard, even if it's a low bar. And so low bar, that's the standard that's low, or that could be a low blow, or a dig or something, you know, subpar. But I'm not a stranger to clotheslining. And so this is, you make your arm into a bar, and this is, in one time of my life, I used this to win a fight that was not fair. I used it and to come at somebody unexpected. This was in my teen years. And so I'm saying I've been low in my life. And there's no cosigning. In other words, I'm not just going along with whatever everybody's saying. And so this is the next point. So I'm going to enter the Royal Rumble. And so, of course, that's the imagery of everybody against everybody, hoping that the loyal fumble. The loyal are the ones that are dedicated to this rap, that are true to it, as well as their followers, because it's my chance to criticize. So I idea that often as humans are waiting for somebody to fail so that we can use that as an opportunity to criticize them. And then what I'm criticizing is what y'all have spit in written lines, while I'm wondering what is budded, in other words, brought forth. Will you butt heads, talking about go against, with Budden, Joe Budden, and I'm calling him the butthead because even though I like to listen to him, I mean the dude speaks a lot of wisdom and stuff, but he's a butthead. I guess it's the only way to say it in a nice way. Or let it lie like bedhead on your bedspread made by caterpillars. Okay, so the hair is laying, like whenever you get out of bed and your hair is all messed up, you're just going to let it lie the way it is. In other words, let the cards where they lie. And then the reference to bedspread is like the idea of you sleeping on it or you being comfortable in it. But notice that the bedspread is made by caterpillars. Well, caterpillars, of course, is a reference to Eminem's song. And the idea, the concept is that everybody has been influenced by other people, and that nothing's original, and therefore what is transformed, what is metamorphosized, you can't remember what it looked like in its original form. But more than this, I'm really talking about clothing. I'm talking about luxury, because that was one of the things MGK and others try to bring up, is these guys are rich, you know. So I mean, why are they even rapping? You know, that type of idea like that. So this is a reference to them having silk bedspreads, because the next line says, whose silky lines cap the pillars. So right here, silky lines means smooth lines, or you know, slick or luxurious, you know, that have idea here. But the cap the pillars, this goes off the idea, of course it rhymes with caterpillars, but now we're talking about the apex, the cap, the top of the pillars, or something that holds something up, the standard. Then the next statement says of the house of hip hop, or our fillers. And so the house of hip hop is this whole idea of the culture. And that's the whole issue, that some people say, you know, these people are culture vultures, or that or that they don't belong in hip hop culture or whatever. And I'm saying no, the house of hip hop, they've done it through, silky lines or fillers. In other words, when you don't have anything better to say, or some people consider rapidy rap fillers, or rapping fast fillers, or things like that. The point is that whenever you talk about a house of hip hop, you got to include everybody in it. So I say for a generation lip lock to pretend to fill you with fillers. In other words, they got to pretend like they can relate to you. I mean, to pay homage to the people behind you, but at the same and they're acting like they have fillers. In other words, like they got their antennas up to try to find out what's going on. But they're lip locked in the sense that, from our perspective, or our older people's perspective, they're not really saying anything. It's just they're not even mumbling. It's like they're on hush. I mean, compared to no one wants to hear each other, basically. But if their antennas are raised, so that goes off the filler idea, it's because they've been raised to raise them to smoke crack. Now, this is from another personal experience that I was trying to use a metaphor for, and I'll try to explain it. But if their antennas are raised, going off fillers, it's because they've been raised, talking about by their parents or by the people around them, to raise. In other words, to break, to destroy, to demolish them to smoke crack. And this is the idea of someone using an antenna, which I actually did at the age of 16, to smoke crack cocaine. Because that's all we had to smoke it with, and it was my first time. And the antenna got too hot. So that's why I say this next point. Since they want smoke, because this is the phrase that everybody's talking about in terms of battle now, is, oh, he wants smoke. But none could hold that. In other words, I'm basically saying that all rappers have their limits. Everybody claims they have smoke, but none can hold that. In other words, that pipe gets too hot. So I said, better graduate to glass pipes. That idea being is that a glass pipe is better because they've been taught to bag pipes. Bagpipes, of course, a reference to the musical instrument, but it's kind of like the idea that people have been trying to collect what other people are getting high off of. In other words, chasing someone's high, chasing someone's flow, chasing that what's going on. But then I clarify, I said, which means when they blow, it sounds like a cat on its last life. And of course, this is the idea of bagpipes. When you blow a bagpipe, the sound of it, but also it sounds like a person breathing or rapping, and it says a cat on its last life. So this is your 9 lives idea, right? But of course, you could be referring to a crackhead here also, because when he's blowing, it sounds like he's a cat on his last life. So you see someone that's desperate and addicted, and just what it's demolishing them. And then I say, but I'm going to expose it to the Mac light. I think a Mac light was a certain kind of flashlight. Paint each other in a bad light. I mean, that's what people do in battle raps, hoping that when the die is cast. And so this is a reference to die as in color die, but also as in casting the dice. The one, usually it's a poetic reference. So the gamble, the lots, the things are determined that they will have surpassed lines. And so this is the idea that, okay, whenever they close in this life or close in this battle, that they have a body of work that's more than just some fancy lines, that they have content. And this is kind of responding to Joe Budden's idea that trying to say that Eminem didn't have any content, or certain people don't have content, and what exactly content is. And that's why I say in the next part, while leaving beef and content, in other words, now they're beefing, now they're going to be talking about stuff, personal stuff and all that. Will they be content with rhymes that are that bright? In other words, after all this is said and done, will they be like, man, I didn't pull any punches? Will they have any regrets? Or is hip hop flatline? In other words, is it dead? Is not just is beef dead? Is there no hope for this? Please sign the last line so we could pull the plug. So the last line is kind of like whenever you're signing over, someone is dead, dying, and you're basically signing the signature They pull the plug. And so it can also mean agreeing with the previous statement as well. It says, please sign the last line so we can pull the plug. Because if we don't pull the slugs, talking about punches, we'll soon be pulling slugs out of the wound of us. So you have the idea that if we don't start pulling punches and careful how we interact with each other, then it's going to get to gunplay, and you'll be there. Someone's going to be pulling slugs, and metaphorically or physically as well. And I refer to the wounds of us. So, and this is the idea not of the wound of one individual, but that it affects all of us. And so I take two Bible verses here, even though I know I'm not dealing with a Christian audience here, but it's still an important principle. A house can't stand if we devour one another. But this house was built on empowering one another. That's that whole idea that supposedly hip hop was all about positive culture and all that. I'm going to contend in the case. Hip hop was actually built on freedom of speech. And from that freedom of speech, they used that as an ability to empower one another, or in battle raps to tear down one another. So whenever you empower people within this house of hip hop, then you that includes making the way for the cannibals. In other words, the ones that are going to eat each other in the sense of going back to devouring one another. They eat away with their mandibles. In other words, their teeth. Whatever they have, whatever skill they have, whether that's talking about their lyrics or whether that's talking about mumble rap or whatever, the house has to be big enough for everybody. And at the same time, you're empowering everybody. And so the mumble rap's going to eat at the lyricist, and the lyricist is going to, eat at this, and there's going to be this contention, this fighting. Their way is remandable. In other words, they should receive a warning or a citation, that type of idea. So if these lines are landable, in other words, if they connect, if there's anything to them, if there's anything solid about them, then hope they knock the wind out of competitors. In other words, out of everybody else that's putting stuff out there. And then I say, I already know who is better served. And this is pretty, I mean, I could say I'm better, but I'm not, of course. I don't have my whole life dedicated to rap and to develop that stuff. And I don't have production and all of those types of things. So being better nowadays means basically sacrificing your time and what you already have, a talent at, to develop that and hone that. And I'm a Bible teacher, so that's actually what I do with it. But I say, I already know who is better, sir. And I honestly believe Eminem is better, but Eminem still has to prove that, a lot of people think Eminem is so good just because they watched 8 Mile or, they heard about him being in rap battles before. But I mean, let's be honest. Joe Budden was actually in a rap battle with Hollow, what's his name? Hollow the Don. And now he accused Budden of kind of going into a rap flow lyric rather than a straight battle and all that type of stuff. But regardless of that, the point is that people can talk about who is better than who and all that, but it all relates down to Envious unless you can point out facts, statistics, things like that, categories of evaluation there. And I think people do that. I think one day, whenever people look back on when the technology is there, and maybe the technology is there, I just haven't seen it yet, where all of Eminem's raps are going to be analyzed, and where people try to say, well, his album, this is new, or he was better at this. They'll probably have such intricate software that they'll be able to show the exact rhyme patterns, the exact schemes. In other words, his fingerprint or his fingerprint on all of his work, and they'll see that a lot of it has to do with perception. A lot of it has to do with the changing of the culture and those issues like that, and the narratives that are spinning around there. I don't really think that there's much difference in the stuff that is on each one of Eminem's albums. I think the content's different. He comes at it at different angles, and he does things new and all of that. But I still see continuity through all of it. So if these lines are landable, they hope they knock the wind out of competitors. I already know who is better served. But how is hip-hop better served? So this is the question music, of course, that's what a lot of people nowadays call the lean and the mumble rap and that stuff like that. The thug music, which was, you know, NWA, Tupac, gangster rap, all that type of stuff that I grew up on, or words that sound better slurred. And so that right there is, of course, another reference to the stuff that you hear today. But at the same time, some people are not actually talking about anything. So if they were to say it clearly, it wouldn't sound as good. So I mean, their words are better slurred. But since the foundation is freedom of speech, that goes back to the idea that I'm arguing that the foundation of hip hop is freedom of speech, not positivity. Then there is no grounds for being impeached. In other words, you can't bar anybody from hip hop, which means MGK is free to speak about anything. Whenever people try to say, well, there's standards and you got to fight by the rules, how can you make a system of rules when it's basically all about no rules? I mean, this is a street fight. This is not a boxing match, which means MGK is free to speak about anything. And the media is free to speak about anything. You can't get mad at Joe Buddens and the other people like that who are in the media that comment on things. So, but before you choose to speak about anything, remember, you can't choose the consequences. And that's the thing. Whenever MGK said what he said on that tweet, he had a certain intent, whatever that intent was, but he can't choose the consequences. And just as Eminem can't choose the consequences of who's going to actually respond to him and whether he's going to win or not. So in my eyes, none of you are suspended. It's up to you to choose it. And rend it means, you know, hand it over or even tear it. And the reason why I writ this is I meant it. We're envious. So that sums up that whole idea. You know, I'll try one more time to spit this, but like I said, but I like the beat and the song was okay. With this beef, you have paved your own way. Not saying you didn't do this before, but you didn't know what was in store, but neither did him. So in a sense, you are like him, but in other ways, you are not alike. I give you praise when you're on the mic, but neither you are supernatural. Sound like you took a bite of forbidden fruit and know it's not a stupid apple. This thing's like. But allow me to flip the script because it seems like we're all whipped by something so devious that we're envious of each other's hits. So we bring up what each other miss and hope that it hits home because misery don't miss being alone and I'm in your company. And here's what you want from me. I've been taught to show hard even if I got no bars, to go hard even if it's a low bar, but I'm not a stranger to clotheslining. Dang it. I have to come up with a better system. And there's no co-signing, so I'm going to enter the Royal Rumble, hoping that the Lord will fumble because it's my chance to criticize what y'all have. Will you butt heads with Budden, the butthead, or let lie like bedhead on your bedspread made by caterpillars? Who sticky lions caterpillars of the house of hip hop or are fillers for a generation lip lock to pretend to fill you with fillers? But if the antennas are raised because they've been raised to raise in the smoke crack, since they want smoke but none can hold that, better graduate because they've been taught to back. Pipe. When they blow, it sounds like a cat on a slash life. I'm going to expose it like a Mac light, a bad light, hoping that when the die is cast, that they will have surpassed lines, while leaving beef and content. Will they be content with rhymes that are that bright, or is hip hop flat line? Please sign the last line so we can pull the plug. Because if we don't pull the slugs, we'll soon be pulling slugs at the wound of us. A house can stand and devour one another, but this house was built or empower one another, and that includes making ways away with mandibles. The way is mandible. So these lines are landable and hope they knock the wind out of competitors. I already know who is better served. But how is hip hop better served? Thug music or words that sound better slurred. But since the foundation is freedom of speech and there's no grounds for being impeached, which means MGK is free to speak about anything. And the media is free to speak about anything. But before you choose to speak about anything, remember you can't choose the consequences. So in my eyes, none of you are suspended. It's up to you to defend it or rend it. And the reason why I writ this is I meant it. We're envious. And so, you know, this is a pretty rough video, but people that are in this stuff may, you know, find something of value here. Substance over style or whatever. But anyway,